So 4 things, how to reduce diet friction. Number 1, make it obvious. And James Clear talks about habit stacking. So what does he mean by that? Well, basically, don't try and create a new habit in a vacuum. You need to link it to something. If I use that analogy again, not analogy, but the story of brushing your teeth. When you go into the bathroom to wash your face or take a shower, it's very easy then to brush your teeth because you've got the habit of getting washed. So building on brushing your teeth, that's kind of like quite easy. So you want to do something similar then, let's say with healthy eating. And it might be that when you get home from work, that as you walk in through the door, typically you walk in, maybe you drop your bag down in a certain place, you take your coat off, you hang it up somewhere, and as you hang your coat up, because that's habitual that you always hang it up in that certain spot, that becomes your cue, or the habit that you do, that becomes the habit and the cue to say, right, okay, I'm now going to walk into the kitchen and have a glass of water, for example. Now, if you don't like drinking water, make it something else, not alcohol. So you go and do that. That habit of drinking water then may lead on to another habit of saying, okay, fine, I'm now going to prepare a healthy meal. But what you've done is you've built one habit on top of another habit. You're not trying to create new habits out of thin air and in a vacuum. The same would be applicable to exercise in terms of forming habits. The same principle applies to that as well. So that's number 1, make it obvious. So link it to something else, make it obvious. Number 2, make it attractive. It's got to be an attractive thing. So eating healthily, what can we attach to that? And this might sound contradictory, but let me explain what I mean by this. PUD, pudding, after you've eaten PFC. What's PFC? Proteins, fats and carbs. So healthy protein source, healthy carbohydrates, healthy fats. So healthy protein, healthy fats, healthy carbs. Eat that first and then enjoy a pudding if you have to have a pudding. Now here's the thing, 9 times out of 10, if you eat a healthy meal of proteins, fats and carbs, you're going to feel that satiated that the pudding afterwards, instead of it being a big pudding, it may end up being just a small pudding, rather than, instead of 2 scoops of ice cream, you may only have just the 1 scoop of ice cream. Now you may be thinking, why are you having ice cream at all? Shouldn't you not be having that whatsoever? Well, in my world, if you try and cut out all the things that you see as pleasurable, and healthy food should be one of them, but the things I'm talking about, ice cream, crisps, biscuits, if you say, I'm going to completely cut them out, then already you probably set yourself up for failure. However, adopting this sort of approach gives you the opportunity to eat well, feel satiated, and regulate how much of that other stuff you eat. You may not agree with that, but I think it's a sensible approach. So that's make it attractive. Number 3, make it as easy as you possibly can. If it's difficult, you will not do it. If it's difficult eating healthily, I guarantee you won't do it. So how do we make it easy? Well, it might start off with something as simple as your shopping. Maybe you decide to shop online. Make that easy for yourself, rather than going into the shop, especially when you're hungry and shopping and buying poor food. So make it easy. Maybe you prep your food ahead of time. Maybe you chop up the vegetables and you put them in a nice little box, and then you pull them out in the morning, you're going to work, you pull them out of the freezer, you put them in the fridge so they can defrost, you get home at night, you do that thing where you come in, you put your bag down, you put your coat on the hook, you have the glass of water, and then you go into the fridge, you pull out the chopped vegetables, you put it on the side, pop the lid off, and you're into that mode. So make it as easy as you possibly can. If it's exercise we were speaking about, I'd be saying to you, make sure if you're exercising from home, you have all of your exercise gear laid out at the foot of the bed or on a chair first thing in the morning, if that's when you do your exercise, or if it's when you come home from work at night. Everything's laid out. Your weights, your bands, your mat, everything's in place. Because believe you me, if you have to stop, think about where your training gear is, where the exercise equipment is, under the bed, or is it in the wardrobe, or is it downstairs in the cupboard, just that thought process of where is it is enough to dissuade you from taking the action, especially if you're not an exerciser. So make things as easy as you possibly can. The easier it's going to be, the more the more likely it is you're going to do it. Why do you think it is quick, easy, ready meals are so easy to eat? Because they've made it easy for us. They've pre-packaged them, pre-cooked them, and we live in the ding society now, don't we, where we just pop it in the microwave, 2 minutes, ding, and we have a meal. But you can do the same by pre-preparing food if you want to. And then the fourth one is make it satisfying. You know, when you're achieving certain milestones, when you're eating healthily and you can see the results, track and reward yourself. You know, I say to my clients, you know, book in things like, it might be a manicure, it might be buy a new item of clothing, it might be go and see a show, it might be treat yourself to a spa day. So when you're successful, do something to recognize it, you know, track it and reward it. If you do that, you're more likely to want to do it in the future, because you're hardwiring your mind to expect some sort of reward at the end of it. And if it's a nice reward, you're more likely to do the action that's necessary in order to continue this healthy lifestyle, to reduce the friction that there can be around losing weight, and indeed maintaining it as well. So those are the four things. Final few things then. First one is to identify as a healthy person. The more that you're doing these things, the more you can identify as being that person. And fundamentally, and I'll be a little bit cautious here, but fundamentally, me as a man, I identify as a man. You will identify, I'm guessing, as a woman. There'll be certain things that you'll probably do, and there'll be certain things that I will do, because we identify in a certain way. And those things that I will do instinctively, because I've identified as a man, and there'll be certain things that you will do because you've identified as a woman. And when you identify as being a particular type of person, then the actions naturally align themselves with you. So there's no jarring, there's no friction there, or the friction is certainly reduced, because that's how you identify. And if you identify as a healthy person, a healthy, slim, fit person, guess what? The actions that support that identity fall into alignment, and you do them far more easily than you would if you don't identify as a healthy and fit person. And the way to identify as that is to carry out these habits, but doing them consistently. Now, the science around habit forming, according to the University College of London, is something like 66 days on average to form a new habit. That's the new time frame that people have given to habit forming. But I would go beyond thinking about it in terms of how many days does it take to form habits. I would think about it more in terms of looking at the process that you're getting involved in. So rather than saying how long will this take for me to become habitually this way, so that I identify as a healthy person, I'd be saying to you, think of the process first. And what I mean by that is the process is all of the action steps that you take in order to become a healthy person. Let me give you an example of what I mean by this. You could have two people, person A, person B, almost identical, both need to lose 5 stone. One person has said, right, okay, I'm going to give myself 6 months following the XYZ diet in order to achieve that goal. So their focus is on, almost mindlessly, on just this diet, following it to the nth degree, and that's what they do. The other person, on the other hand, is saying, okay, I'm going to focus on what the process is, what the elements are, what the lifestyle habits are, and I'm going to, you know, measure, check, modify things to make that fit as best it possibly can. So that's where my focus is going to be, on the actual process. Now, they both get to 6 month point, and they both lost 5 stone. My question to you is, who do you think is more likely to sustain that? And I think the answer is almost in what I've just been describing before. The person who said, I'm going to follow the XYZ diet that's designed to help me lose 5 stone in 6 months, that person is more likely to regain the weight. Why? Because for that 6 month period, they were probably locked into this diet, but maybe weren't paying particular attention to all the habits and the things they were doing in order to bring about those dietary changes. Whereas the other person has focused specifically on the process of, you know, thinking, how they eat, how they prepare, exercise, what sort of exercise to do, how do they progress the exercise, what's involved in exercise, and they've really got comfortable with the process and really enjoy the process. So when they arrive at the 6 month point, unlike the other person that goes, right, I've arrived, I finish, the other person has adopted it as a lifestyle now, because they've really involved themselves in the process. And when you do that, it's more likely you're going to stick with it long term. So it's the process first that's important, not just about losing the weight. When you get the process right, the outcome will follow. If you just focus on the outcome alone, you lose sight of the process, and it can become very frustrating. And that's when we can revert to being childlike, and we throw our teddy out of the pram, and we get annoyed with ourselves because we're not seeing this weight loss. We're not prepared to take those small incremental changes. We're not prepared to do those small marginal gains that I mentioned Sir David Brailsford did with the GB Olympic team. Small steps, big gains. And finally then, or final couple of things, if you want to delve into these habits a little bit more, there's a very good book on the market. I referenced him right at the start. His name is James Clear. He's written a book called Atomic Habits, and he goes into great detail about habit forming, and indeed I've referenced him throughout this presentation, and it's a pretty good read. If you don't want to read it, you can check him out on YouTube, either Audible, you can listen to it, or you can just listen to him being interviewed. Whichever one you do, very insightful, and may just put you on the right track towards changing some of your habits so that you can bring about not just short-term weight loss, but weight loss that you can sustain long-term. If you are interested at all in finding out how I'm able to help you, possibly, then there should be a button or a link below this video somewhere. Certainly sign up for the YouTube channel if that's where you're watching this. And if you want to contact me, I work online. There should be a link around this video somewhere. You can click on that. That should take you to my online diary where you can book a time where we can get on a call, have a conversation. Nothing to buy on the call, it's purely information. And we can have a conversation about your goals. But hopefully you found that of use. And I say, if you are watching this on YouTube and you've enjoyed it, then please do hit that ding button, and that will help me to sort of produce more of this sort of information. So until next time, take very good care, and bye for now.